stars, smaller crowds, but the show must go on.
Last year I had to miss it, but I'm so excited to be here again today.
The energy and excitement at TIFF's opening night, how Hollywood strikes are impacting Toronto's biggest time of year for film.
This important oversight function collapsed when COVID hit.
Plus, long-term tragedy. Ontario's ombudsman details a 7-week gap of inspections at nursing homes just as the pandemic hit. The hundreds of residents who died during that time now form the basis of new system-wide recommendations.
We are seeing a trend here with all being similar type of places of worship.
And targeted temples. Police search for 4 suspects behind several break-ins in York Region. I'm Chris Glover. It's a cooler night tonight as a much more chill Toronto International Film Festival officially gets underway. There are still a number of world premieres and some celebrities for sure to be spotted around town. But with Hollywood strikes continuing to grind the industry to a virtual halt, Toronto's big festival is certainly feeling different this year. Anam Khan is live for us along King Street tonight. Hey there, Anam. Scaled back, I suppose, but it still seems like a lot of fun there at the festival.
Yes, so Chris, there's a lot of people out here. They're dressed up, they're taking photos, they're going to watch movies, and I spoke to a lot of people who came here from around the world, and they came here specifically for TIFF, and they're just really excited to enjoy art from around the world, and that's really what TIFF is all about. The streets of Toronto came alive today with TIFF's Festival Street kicking off, marking the 48th edition of the event. And visitors couldn't be happier.
TIFF only happens once a year, and for so many years I've been coming to the festival. Last year I had to miss it, but I'm so excited to be here again today.
And it's the multicultural atmosphere of the city that makes it so successful, says Mayor Olivia Chow.
We have so many different cultures living harmoniously together. And that's why the Toronto film industry has an incredibly bright future, because of who we all are.
The festival is bringing people from all over the world.
I'm Japanese, from Germany. I'm from Israel.
But this year, it will feel different. Unlike previous years, there won't be as many star-studded appearances because of the Hollywood actors and writers' strikes. But many are saying the feeling of glitz and glam is still there. And the quieter vibe due to the strike isn't affecting the experience of these brothers from England.
Yeah, I got my sweater, yeah.
We still got to see the movies, the art's still there, so I think it's fine. It's not about the celebrities at the end of the day, it's about the art, and it's still happening.
Where I'm from, there's not much big stuff like this, so I'm really excited to just see as much as I can.
Organizers say the festival has adapted, but the quality of the films hasn't suffered.
We've got 260 films from 74 countries. This is the biggest celebration of film in the world right now.
And while those movies attract a large crowd, they also present a unique opportunity to network.
I study filmmaking in Mexico, and I think that this is just an excellent opportunity to be surrounded by the best talents here at Canada and also some of the world.
So the festival will continue for another 2 weeks with plenty of activities and street celebrations. And Nickelback will be performing tomorrow at 6 p.m. on King Street for free. It's a free concert. They're promoting their documentary called Hate to Love, which will be right here at TIFF.
All right, sounds good. Anam Khan reporting live for us tonight. Thanks, Anam. And not a bad night to be out enjoying TIFF. Certainly a lot cooler this evening. 18 degrees right now, heading to a low of 16. Let's bring Colette in now. And Colette, not too bad now, but at times it was a bit unsettled this evening.
Yeah, Chris, it's sort of like you have one air mass that doesn't want to leave, and another one trying to make its way in, and that battle between them leads to the thunderstorm activity we saw, but also the ups and downs of our temperatures as they rolled through. This morning at 6 a.m., Toronto was at 22 degrees, and then up to 28, cooler in the Windsor area. And then as some of those storms rolled through with some ponding and puddling in many spots, down to 22, But it didn't end there. And then back up to 27 until now we're seeing more of a uniform cooling off as those winds changing to the north to northwest and that cooler air kind of filtering in. Just a few isolated cells left, mostly into eastern Ontario. We keep some of that cloud cover though, and into Friday. I think we'll start to break through, so at times have some sunny breaks, becoming more of a mix of sun and cloud, but that's later in the day. 16, that's 6 degrees cooler than it was last night. 23 the daytime high as well for tomorrow. So just, yes, a big difference. We'll take a look at the weekend forecast when I come back and some tropical activity, Chris.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Colette. Turning now to a dark period in Ontario's fight against COVID-19. We learned more today about the catastrophe that played out in long-term care homes at the beginning of the pandemic. In a report tabled today, Ontario's ombudsman says the inspection of nursing homes collapsed for a 7-week period as hundreds of residents died. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has his recommendations to never let a gap like that happen again.
Welcome to everybody.
Ontario's Ombudsman, Paul Dubé, found no inspections happened during the height of COVID in long-term care homes.
This important oversight function collapsed when COVID hit.
It was spring 2020. Over the 7 weeks when no inspections happened, more than 700 long-term care residents died. Dubé says the pandemic shone a light on an inspection system that already wasn't working.
It was already strained before the pandemic, but it was not ready. Didn't have a plan, didn't have sufficient people.
The report details heartbreaking stories. One family member complained to the ministry 4 times over a 1-month period in spring 2020 about disturbing conditions in his mother's long-term care home. Nothing was inspected until October, many months after his mother had already died from COVID, one of 53 people who died with the virus at that home. Dubé says once inspections did resume, homes faced minimal consequences.
Some of the homes were let off quite easily, and when you look at the scale of sanctions that could have been imposed, they were often given the least onerous sanctions.
One issue is that inspectors refused to go into homes at one point, saying it was unsafe. Dubé says the system didn't make it safe. The opposition blames the government for being unprepared.
The failure of this government led to preventable deaths in long-term care homes during COVID-19. It was unreasonable, unjust, and wrong.
Part of the report looks at the tragedy at Orchard Villa, where 70 residents died. Paul Parks was one of them. His daughter Kathy says she learned from the report that 50 residents were already infected at a time she was told it was only a few.
I was trying to sort of raise a red flag and say something really bad is happening here. And people are about to die, and then days later, my father did pass away.
Today, she's been talking with other families.
One family member said, like a gut punch. It's like hitting rewind, and now I'm back in, April of 2020, but with more information, which is so hurtful. It's so hurtful.
She hopes the report will lead to change. The Ombudsman makes 76 recommendations, including that the ministry always have people available for on-site inspections, clarify when inspectors are required to be on-site during any future pandemic, and ensure it briefs inspectors on emerging threats, as well as having PPE available. The Ministry of Long-Term Care says it accepts all the recommendations and has already made some progress, including more money to double the number of inspectors. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario's Special Investigations Unit has cleared a Toronto police officer of wrongdoing in the fatal shooting of a 40-year-old man in crisis earlier this year. In a report released tonight, the SIU says there are no grounds to proceed with charges against the officer who shot the man twice in the abdomen. It happened in a parking lot in the area of Danforth and Victoria Park Avenues on May 10th. The SIU said the man confronted the officer with a knife and refused to drop it when asked repeatedly to do so. Family members previously identified the man killed as Andrew Geisler. His sister and father told CBC News that Geisler needed help because he suffered from depression, anxiety, and struggled with alcoholism. Residents of a high-rise complex at Dundas and Bloor have been without power for over 24 hours now. We told you last night about an electrical fire at the Crossways complex that left hundreds of people in the dark. Today, backup generators are providing emergency lighting in hallways and common areas, as well as one elevator, but not 2 residential units, though they do have water. Building management tells CBC that parts have been ordered to complete electrical repairs, and once that's done, Toronto Hydro can restore power to the whole building. An agreement to avoid a strike of high school teachers later this year appears to be in jeopardy tonight. The bargaining unit that represents Toronto high school teachers releasing a memo to members this evening. The negotiators saying tonight they oppose the tentative agreement the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation reached with the Education Minister a couple of weeks ago. That tentative deal needs to be ratified by members, but it committed to binding arbitration if there was an impasse in contract negotiations by October 27th. Union members are set to begin voting on whether to accept binding arbitration tomorrow, but the union negotiators warn accepting the deal would forego a key pillar of fair bargaining, the ability to strike. Similar arguments were made by Ontario's 3 other teachers' unions, who previously rejected the government's offer outright. Potential labor unrest isn't the only thing the Ford government is dealing with right now. Ontario's new housing minister is doubling down today on the government's plans to build on parts of the Greenbelt as it continues ahead with a review of the protected lands. Ali Chiasson has the latest.
Despite the Auditor General and Integrity Commissioner's reports criticizing the government's handling of the Greenbelt land swaps, new Housing Minister Paul Calandra says critics have got his government all wrong.
To make that suggestion that we don't care is absolutely, completely false.
Peppered with questions about the motivation behind bulldozing environmentally protected land, he says,
I think we can do both. We can protect our natural heritage while also meeting our targets.
The same target the previous Housing Minister Steve Clark had, to build 1.5 million homes by 2031. NDP housing critic Jessica Bell points out a contradiction.
Even the government's own hand-picked housing affordability task force made it very clear that opening up Greenbelt lands is not necessary.
To that, Minister Calandra says,
the task force report did not at the time contemplate the enormous amount of growth that the province was going to see.
What was very clear to me is that this government continues to spiral out of control on this issue.
That's how interim Liberal leader John Fraser sees it too.
And it's clear that the government is scrambling. They're even going as far as saying they're going to maybe open up more Greenbelt.
This week, the Ford government announced it's launching a review of the Greenbelt in its entirety, which could result in more land being added or taken away. The scope of it is unclear at this point, but this time the new housing minister says they'll be transparent.
We will absolutely, positively come back and show exactly how that review is going to take place.
But that's not going to cut it for critics.
What we do need is for the minister to really listen to Ontarians, recall the legislature and return these Greenbelt lands to the Greenbelt.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News.
Welcome back. The case against Kenneth Law seems to have expanded once again tonight. The Mississauga man is already accused of selling a deadly substance online to people at risk of self-harm. So far, police around the world have linked him to more than 100 deaths, including here in Ontario. Tonight, police in British Columbia became the latest jurisdiction to open an investigation related to Law, just as CBC News sat down with the mother of one of the alleged victims. Thomas Dagla shares her heartbreak and the latest on the spiraling investigation.
Kim Prosser has spent hours on the shores of Lake Erie, trying to heal since the death of her son Ashton last March. He was a month away from his 20th birthday.
It was like all of this potential it's just gone.
She's the first parent to speak publicly about a loved one's suicide that prosecutors blame on Kenneth Law. Accused of selling a potentially lethal substance online, Law is facing 14 charges of counseling or aiding suicide in Ontario. Kim suspects Ashton found a pro-suicide forum that led him to Law, when what her son really needed was help.
We're not doing enough. There isn't support for everyone who's struggling in mental health.
She says Ashton's mental health declined when his high school classes went virtual early in the pandemic. Around the world, families are speaking of their late loved one's struggles, with Law suspected of links to more than 110 deaths in multiple countries.
He's destroyed lives, so many lives.
Imogen Nunn was known to her TikTok followers as Deaf Immy, raising awareness about the deaf community and mental health until she took her own life this year.
It was really difficult to get access to deaf mental health services.
Law was arrested near Toronto in May. Now police in BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan all say they're investigating. Law sent 160 packages across Canada, allegedly marketing products to vulnerable clients.
To see someone who might be undermining that by promoting or talking about suicide as a way to feel better is really hard to watch.
As for Prosser, she plans to start a foundation in her son's memory, knowing those who need support aren't always getting it. Those tattoos symbolize her family and were drawn by Ashton, a part of him she'll keep forever. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
Help is available. If you or someone you know is struggling, you can call Talk Suicide Canada at 1-833-456-4566 or text 45645 between 4 p.m. and midnight Eastern Time. Taking you to York Region now, where police are on the hunt for 4 men. The suspects are believed to be breaking into Buddhist temples and making off with large amounts of cash. In one of the incidents, the suspects even allegedly asked people in the temple for a blessing before making off with the safe. Dale Manukduk has the latest on the brazen break-ins.
On July 21st, York Regional Police say 2 suspects entered this Markham temple and stole a large amount of cash. It was the first of 6 break, enter, and thefts.
We have a couple of entries where they were unoccupied, and we have a couple of incidents where there was an entry, there were people there. However, the suspects were spoofed or scared away and they left immediately.
That was this Stouffville temple. The suspects fled before police arrived. And on August 20th at another Stouffville location, 2 suspects are said to have asked people in the temple for a blessing before making off with a safe filled with money. Security video gathered by investigators have them believing the same 4 men are responsible for the series of B&Es in Markham and Stouffville, all of which are Buddhist temples. Police say that on August 6th and the 19th, a Markham residence being used as a temple was forced into, cash and a safe was stolen. And here at the Cham Sham Temple, it's the last reported incident. That happened on Sunday. The suspects allegedly forced entry into the private area of the grounds. They stole Canadian and Chinese currency. Police are looking at hate as a potential motivation.
Of course, that is something that is being considered in the investigation. At this point, I can't say that that is the motive to confirm that that's the motive. We are seeing a trend here with all being similar type of places of worship.
The 4 suspects are described as between 30 and 40 years old and are associated with 3 vehicles used to flee crime scenes. Police are looking if there are any more incidents and are encouraging anyone to come forward and report it. They're also advising that anyone with security systems ensure that they're working and safes containing valuables are properly secured. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Markham.
Out of the cruiser and into the classroom, some Toronto police officers are leading a new training course to steer young drivers in the right direction when it comes to safe road practices. Organizers say the program goes beyond teaching the do's and don'ts of driving.
Not only get them the driver's license, but help build respect for the community that they live in so that they're not disturbing their neighbors, that they're doing things safely. They understand the impact of a vehicle.
So the 4-week program begins this Saturday. Lessons on the rules of the road will be coupled with practical sessions and one-on-one training opportunities with officers to help new drivers pass their G1 and G2 tests. Applications can be submitted through the Children's Breakfast Clubs. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Back with Colette now, and as the extreme heat pushes out of our region, in the tropics, I know that you're tracking more extreme weather.
Yes, Chris, we're continuing to see these systems developing in the Atlantic and as well in the Eastern Pacific. Hurricane Jova there up to a Category 5 that seems to have weakened a tiny bit and not near any land masses, but that's a monster too. And Tropical Storm Margot forming today off the coast of West Africa, but we're going to focus in on Lee. You can see that eye wall there pretty clearly. This one has really accelerated in terms of its strengthening, and as it continues to track to the northwest, this is what we'll be watching so carefully. Where is it going to go next? These are the kind of spaghetti plots trying to decipher that going through time, because not this weekend, it's still in the Caribbean towards this weekend, but next weekend is this ridge of high pressure here in a trough along the eastern seaboard going to be directing it up towards Atlantic Canada? Well, that's the big question, and it is a ways off, but something to carefully be monitoring, of course, for us, for our friends and family here at home. So looking at our skies through the overnight, quite a bit of that cloud cover, and it lingers into Friday, but a fresher air mass moves in with the wind from the north to northwest. We should get some gradual clearing of that cloud cover, especially later in the day for tomorrow. But these overnight temperatures, they're really the big story. Our daytime high tomorrow is going to be closer to what our overnight lows have been. So much more comfortable sleeping weather. Having a look at those readings, essentially lots of mid-teens that we'll be seeing through the overnight hours. And there it is, Friday's high 23, and feeling essentially like that 23, not like a temperature in the 30s, feeling like we're closer to 40. Saturday 24, a nice looking day there. And then Sunday, I do have that extra cloud cover in, a slight chance for some showers, but I've even taken that out for now. So it may not be a bad weekend all around. And then into Monday and beginning of next week, we'll get into some showery activity towards midweek as well, Chris.
All right, Colette, have a great night. Finally tonight, the kids at Holland Bloorview got a real kick out of a visit today from the entire Toronto FC squad.
I'm really excited to be here. It means a lot. We've been told a lot of them watch CFC and they love the sport of soccer, so I think it means a lot to them. And being here and seeing their faces, it means everything.
We're both really excited to be here to see all these soccer players. Yeah. And it means a lot that they're helping to bring a spotlight to Holland Bloorview, which is a really important place to us and to a lot of families in Toronto.
Holland Bloorview is Canada's largest children's rehabilitation hospital, focused on improving the lives of kids with disabilities. But today, rehab wasn't the focus. These guys were. Players signed autographs, played games, and handed out some swag to the kids as well. Looks like a great day for all of them. All right, that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.